guys, welcome back to Spelling and Word Study. My name is Mrs. Rhoades and I'm here to get you started on Unit 13, the SION shun ending. Please take a second to gather your materials. You will need your green book, open to page 83. You will also need colorful pens, markers, or crayons. Remember, whatever I mark on my board, you should be marking on your page. Please save room for a key as well. If it doesn't fit on your page, a separate sheet of paper is fine. If at any point I'm moving too fast, please pause the video and catch up. All right, so we have been talking about derivational suffixes for a few weeks now. Remember, a derivational suffix is something that we tack on to the end of a word to change its part of speech. So for the last 2 weeks, we looked at the suffix shun, T-I-O-N, and we followed different rules and patterns to turn verbs into nouns. This week, we're going to do the same thing with a suffix that sounds exactly the same. S-I-O-N says shun, and it does the same job. It changes verbs to nouns, but it works on different words. So depending on what the last sound or the last letters are in the verb, we're going to change it to an S-I-O-N ending instead of a T-I-O-N. Let's start by reading our list of words. You'll notice I already went ahead and broke the words into syllables using those orange vertical lines, and I also used a green check mark to check off the stressed syllable in each word. So if you want to take a second to pause the video and mark up your page, feel free to do that. All right, so let's get started. Please repeat after me. Aggression, apprehension, commission, comprehension, concessions, concussion, depression, diversion, excursion, illusion, incision, obsession, persuasion, precision, procession, progression, provisions, supervision, suspension, television. Okay, hopefully you heard that shun at the end of each word. So what I want to do now is I want to go back to the beginning of the word and try to find that verb that we started with. So you might have heard the word aggression before, right? Some dogs are not good around people. They show aggression. They look like they're ready to jump on you or bite you. And then some dogs are the opposite. They're calm and peaceful. So the word aggression comes from a verb that we don't see very often, but it is the word aggress. So if you aggress towards someone, you're being hostile towards them. So notice, to change the word aggress to aggression, all we have to do is add I-O-N, okay? We see that again in the word concussion. Now, a concussion is a head injury, right? Sometimes when kids are playing sports, they get hurt and they might get a concussion. So if you are concussed, okay, you're kicked in the head during a soccer game, and now your brain has been concussed, you are suffering from a concussion. Again, the verb already ended with 2 S's, so I just add I-O-N. Same thing with obsess. If I obsess about something, I can't stop thinking about it. Maybe it's my favorite singer or my favorite food or this vacation that we're going on in a few weeks. And I'm so excited. I'm just obsessing over it. I have an obsession. Okay? During graduation, you see all the seniors wearing their caps and gowns. They process across the field or across the stage. That is called a procession. It's like a parade. Okay, so when a bunch of people process down the aisle, you have a procession. then when somebody, I didn't mean to do that part. When somebody is in school and they're making progress, they're going step by step by step, they are progressing through the levels, or they're progressing through the units, then what we have there is a progression. Okay, so notice all these words, they started out as a verb that ended with a double S. So all we have to do is add ION to make it a noun. Okay, so that one's pretty easy. Add ION. Okay, now look at this word. What is the verb that's hiding in there? It's the word apprehend, right? Police officers, if they're trying to catch a criminal, they're going to apprehend him or her. They're going to grab that person, right? So they can arrest them. Apprehend becomes apprehension, right? So maybe the apprehension was caught on film, right? Or body cam, right? So the act of apprehending someone is called an apprehension. But this is also a feeling. In this unit, you're going to be focusing on the feeling. Apprehension is a feeling of nervousness or anxiety. I'm going to write that here. Apprehension is nervousness or anxiety. So some kids feel apprehension when their mom says, oh, it's time to get your teeth cleaned. Oh, you got to get your braces on. They're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. They're filled with apprehension. But notice, if I want to change the word apprehend, I'm going to write that here. Apprehend to apprehension. Look what I have to do. I have to change the D to an S and then add ION. Same thing happens right here. When you comprehend something, you get it, you understand it. You're like, oh, I see now. So when you comprehend, you are showing comprehension. The D becomes an S, and then you add ION. Okay? I feel like there was another example here. Oh, yes. Suspension. Suspension. What's the verb there? Yeah, suspend, right? If somebody brings matches to school or a knife to school, that's a very serious offense. They're probably going to get suspended. They're going to have to take a break from school and stay away for a while. They will have to serve a suspension. So look what we do. We change the D to S, and then we add ION. So over here, change D to S, and then add ION. Okay, let's look at number 3, commission. What verb did that start as? It's commit. Yeah, commit. Okay, we see that in the legal word, right? If somebody commits a crime, then they made a commission, they like admitted to it. But in this unit, the kind of commission we're going to focus on is bonus pay. So really nothing to do with committing a crime. But if you get a commission, let's say you work at a car dealership and your job is to sell cars, right? If you're really committed and you're trying really hard to get people a good deal and you're friendly and you do all your research and you sell a lot of cars, you're probably going to earn a commission. You're going to get bonus pay. Okay? So let's look at this pattern. To get from commit to commission, the T changes to a double S, and then we add ION. Okay? We see the same pattern with things like admit and admission, or permit and permission. Okay? We drop the T, we change it to a double S, and then we add ION. So, pink box. We change our T to double S, and then we add ION. I don't think there's anywhere else on this list that we do that. All right, we're going to keep going. Concessions. Now, concessions comes from a verb that's called concede. When you concede, you give in. You're like, all right, I concede. So, for instance, if you're running for president and the other person wins, you're going to call them up and concede. You're going to say, great job, you won. I admit that you won and I didn't. So when you concede, you're making a concession. But the most common meaning, the one that you're probably familiar with and that we're going to use in the book, is concessions, like a concession stand, right? So concessions are going to be snacks. Okay, so you go to a baseball game and you're really thirsty and you ask Dad, hey, can I have $5 to go get a cold drink at the concession booth or the concession stand? So concessions are snacks. But let's look at what we did here. We changed concede to concessions. How did we do that? This time we dropped the DE, we changed it to the SS, and then we added ION. So this time we change DE to SS, and then again add ION. I don't think we have any other examples exactly like that where we double the S. But we have to double the S to make it a short E. Okay, this one, depress, is just like aggress, concuss, obsess. I missed that one, right? We just take depress. If something depresses you, it makes you really sad, and now you're feeling depression. Okay, diversion. What's the verb there? Yeah, good. It's divert. Okay? So if you're supposed to be focusing on this, but instead something diverts your attention over here, it's causing a diversion, right? So think about little kids. Sometimes they fall and they scrape their knee and they start crying. It's like the end of the world. It's just a little cut, but they're so upset. So what do? You try to create a diversion. You're like, wait, is that a butterfly? Right? You're diverting their attention. You're getting them to focus on something else instead of their skinned knee. So to get from divert to diversion, this time we're changing the T to an S and then adding ION. So change T to S, add ION. So divert becomes diversion. I don't see any other examples that fit that one either. Okay, moving on though, let's look at excursion. Now there's a verb there that you've probably never heard and probably your parents have never heard, but the verb is excurse. It turns out that if you excurse, you go out for an excursion. An excursion is an outing. right? So you might take an excursion to the beach. You might take an excursion to the library. You might take an excursion to the outlet malls, right? It just means an outing. To get from excurs to excursion, all we do is drop that silent E and add ION, okay? We see that again with incision. An incision is a cut, right? So if the doctor has to remove your appendix because it's, you know, you're having trouble with it, he or she's going to have to make an incision first. They're going to have to cut you open to get that out. So when you make an incision, what you're doing is you're incising. Again, this is a verb we don't see very often. Although these sharp teeth in your mouth, by the way, the pointy teeth, those are called incisors because those are used for incising, for cutting sharp, or they're sharp for cutting. So to get from incise to incision, though, we do the same thing. We drop the silent E and we add ION, okay? This word, this is interesting because there is no verb precise, but there is an adjective, right? If you are precise, you are very accurate. You're very careful, right? So when you're measuring, you're going to be very precise. When you're giving medicine to a baby, you're going to be very precise to make sure you give them the accurate amount. So if you are precise, you show precision. Drop the E, add ION. When you supervise people, maybe you're supposed to be keeping an eye on your little cousins while mom goes to get something. When you are supervising them, you are providing supervision, which is careful. We'll just say careful watch. Okay? Again, to get from supervise to supervision, you're just dropping the E, adding ION. And then down here, we have television. Well, did you know there's a verb called televise? When you put something on television, you're televising it. So same thing, drop the E, add ION. Okay, so wherever we have the brown box, drop the E, add ION. Now that shouldn't be surprising to you because you already know that if you're adding a suffix that starts with a vowel, you have to drop your silent E. Okay, the last pattern is this one. If you persuade somebody to do something, if you convince them to do it, you are using persuasion. So look what happens. To get from persuade to persuasion, we have to change the DE to an S and then add ION. So we see that with persuade to persuasion. Provisions are supplies. So you're not going to go on a camping trip without your provisions. You need food, you need water, you need matches. Those are your supplies, your provisions. They are things that you need to provide for your journey. To change provide to provisions, DE becomes an S, and then you add ION. Okay. The last one, I had to look this up because I know what an illusion is, right? It's something that tricks the eye, like an optical illusion. Something that tricks the eye. But what I didn't know is that there's a verb form of that. It turns out that there's a word called illude, ILLUDE. If you elude someone, you trick them, right? So this follows the same rule though. The DE becomes an S, and then you add ION. So our seventh pattern is this. We change DE to S, and then we add ION. Okay? A lot to cover here, but if you learn these patterns, then you can apply them to many, many other words in the English language that are not on the board right now. The last thing I want to talk about before I go is your new root, and that is on page 86. And the Latin root that you're going to practice this week is CIDE or size. And those words mean to cut off, or in extreme cases, to kill. So think about homicide. Homicide means you're killing a human. Pesticide is something we spray on our crops, and those kill the bugs or the pests that eat the crops. So anytime you see a word that ends with side, homicide, pesticide, suicide, it has something to do with killing. But you also see it in words like incise or incision, right? Remember I said an incision is a cut that the doctor makes, so it's a surgical cut. So if you get your molars or your wisdom teeth removed, the doctor's going to have to make some incisions in your mouth to get the teeth out. So to incise is to cut, and an incision is a cut in the body. To excise is to cut something out. So if there's a tumor or something unhealthy growing in a person's body, not only does the doctor have to cut them open, but then they have to take out, they have to cut out whatever isn't supposed to be there. The word precise, right? If you think about, if you do something with precision, it's like, I don't know how to use it with these words, but you're like laser sharp focus. You're cutting it very clearly. Let me see if I have a definition on here for you. The quality of being cut just right. All right, so you're gonna see other words like that as well. Even words like decide or decision. If you think about it, when you decide something, you cut off thinking. You're like, all right, I'm done thinking about it. I'm ready to make my decision. Even scissors, you're going to see that word on this page. They are used for cutting as well. All right, I know I threw a lot of information at you, but you guys can handle this. Good luck, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.